Welcome to CPA Diversity. This is Christopher Johnson, CPA and Certified Information Security Professional. And we have another CPA Talk Series for you to enjoy and watch. I'm so excited to be bringing this discussion to you with the one and only Miss Crystal Cooke, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the AICPA, the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. She is amazing in her discussion. We talk about why you should pursue a career in accounting and become a CPA. We talk about her role at the AICPA as a Director of Diversity and Inclusion, which is all about working with big and small firms to build their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, understand what it's going to take to increase the number of diverse ethnicities that are joining the accounting profession and becoming CPAs. The AICPA is actively pursuing ways to bring awareness to the profession, awareness to the exam. They are also the ones that work to develop the exam. So it's a really great discussion that we have talking about her role, the industry, the profession, all the things that are happening right now, and of course, the benefits for why you should be pursuing a CPA license. Go get that license. This interview is jam-packed with great information, so I want you to go get a coffee or a beverage of your choice, sit back, maybe grab a pen, take some notes, and just enjoy this discussion with Crystal. It was a great discussion, one of my favorites, so I really appreciate her for doing this. As always, don't forget to like the video. Make sure you comment. If you've got any suggestions, let me know. I'm always looking for topics. I appreciate everybody who's been commenting and liking the video and telling me, giving me their feedback. And I'm definitely taking notes for any more topics you want to hear about. Make sure you share the video. If you know somebody who would benefit from listening to this discussion, I want you to share the video, share it. Make sure you subscribe. We're growing, and we're going to keep on going. And with that being said, here is the discussion with Crystal Cooke from the AICPA. The AICPA wants you to pass the CPA exam. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to CPA Diversity. Today we have another CPA Diversity Talk Series with a very special guest. I would probably say this is one of the most important people in the accounting profession today, considering her role in the role of
pressure.
The profession, right? I'm just throwing it out there, right? Because there's been a lot about diversity and inclusion in our society as a whole, and we're talking about the profession of accounting, right? It's with Miss Crystal Cooke, the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the AICPA. Crystal, welcome to CPA.
Thank you. Wow, that was an amazing introduction. I appreciate that.
I know it's a lot to put on you, but
I was like, woo!
We're really in some interesting times in our country and then also just in our profession, right?
Yes,
and I know you're kind of newer to the role because I've been doing some research about you.
Okay.
You're more newer to the role at the AICPA and working as the Director of D&I. But you're kind of coming in right at this pivotal point, right? Everybody's talking about diversity in just the workplace in general. And then we've been talking about how the numbers for underrepresented ethnic populations in the profession of accounting have been low for quite some time. And I'm starting to see a lot happen. So I'm glad I got the chance to get you on the channel just kind of talk about some of these things. So really quick, before I get into your background and how you ended up in your role, I want to ask you a question. Why should a student or a young professional consider joining the profession of accounting and becoming a CPA, in your opinion and experience?
I feel like, for me, accounting is a career where it takes you anywhere. Like, I know so many people who started in accounting and then some stayed. There's plenty of my colleagues who I started with are still there. Some are CEOs, some are CFOs. Some have their own business. Some are in diversity and inclusion. You can go anywhere with it and it builds you. They say accounting is a language of business. So how can you go wrong with that kind of a career that can take you anywhere? And then the money, I mean, let's be real, the money's pretty good too. So
yeah. I'm glad you said that. You know, it's so funny because I say this, and people who probably been watching my channel have heard me say this before, but when I was in college, I was like, I need to make money. I was in business. I was like, but I need to make money. And then I was looking around. I was like, there's a lot of people in business, like just business management. And I was like, accounting. If I count money, there has to be a correlation.
Right.
You know, and I would agree.
Pay me well to be able to count it. Right?
Exactly. You know, and I would agree that I wouldn't say that being an accountant is going to make you some type of super millionaire, but it does give you earning power. There's a lot of earning power with joining the profession. Okay. So it sounds like you're saying there's the ability to make money, which is a great thing, right? But then also there's just the different opportunities that you have that spawn from joining the profession, like being somebody who can be a CEO, CFO, or just kind of walk into any arena because accounting is such a universal language. Did I get that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right, very good, very good. So then, how did you end up in your current role? And can you just tell me a little bit about what you're doing as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion with the AICPA?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to back up to like the beginning, if that's okay. Not like birth, the beginning.
Yeah, we don't have the time for birth.
But the beginning of my career. And so I think I graduated with accounting degree and went into accounting and made my way to public accounting. I actually didn't start on public accounting. For whatever reason in my head, I decided to start in internal audit, and it wasn't my thing. So I went into public accounting. And I think that is where I probably started getting my foundation of this D&I space. I don't think I even realized that I was at the time, because at that time, I was like, I'm going to be a partner. I'm going to be in the profession. This is my thing. I'm going to be an accounting rock star. And, we don't know what our path is. We think we do, but we don't know. There's a higher power that knows our path. Right. And so I just kind of went on that path. And all along the way, D&I was coming to me. I didn't know it. Like, I was living through these situations. I was the one of many in all these rooms. And when I say one, it would be one a Black woman, one woman, there's whatever. And so I had to learn how to navigate those spaces. And I think my personality was one where I didn't make those things awkward. Right. I was able to bring people in and make people feel comfortable and figure out ways to navigate around those without making this big uproar. And I wasn't going to leave the profession because of it. Like, I thought I deserve to be here just as much as anybody else. So I'm going to figure out a way to get through this in this environment. And I was able to do it successfully. And through KPMG and through all my learnings there, I loved all of the information that I was getting there and what I was learning. And then I went on to the Center for Audit Quality, which, the Center for Audit Quality is a related organization of the AICPA. So there's the association, there's AICPA, there's CIMA. On the AICPA side, there's a related org under there called the Center for Audit Quality. And I think you met with Elizabeth Berenson.
Yeah, we did. Yes. We did. We had an interview with her.
Yes. And so she's from the Center for Audit Quality too. And so I worked with her, frankly. I worked collaboratively with her, and we worked on the talent space. And in that talent space was a D&I space. You can't have talent without focusing on D&I. Right. And so that's where I think that work brought out my passion in the field. And I don't think I even realized it until I started working in it. I tell people D&I came to me. I don't even think I knew it was something that I wanted to do until I started realizing, oh, there are people out here who don't know about this, who look like me. Right. They could walk this same path as me and they have no idea. They could reap all these benefits, and I want to make sure that they know about it. And I want to make sure that this profession has people in it that look like me. Right. And I kind of felt like I had a responsibility to do it. And so, so that's kind of where I got it from and where I got into it. And I will say, most people that I talk to who are in this field, who are students, who are in accounting, I ask them just to kind of know, how did you know about accounting? Where'd you learn about it? And they were like, my mom was an accountant, or my cousin was an accountant, or, my mom's sister, or brother, all these things they knew somebody, they had somebody to relate to. And I was realizing that a lot of ethnic minorities don't have somebody in their lives, or they either had an accounting course in their high school. A lot of schools that are predominantly for ethnic minorities may not have accounting courses. Right. So how do we change this? How do we help people know about this career? And fortunately, I was one of the I was a minority in a minority because my mom was an accountant, and like that was, so I kind of got, my mom was an accountant and my dad was an engineer. So I was like, which one do I want to, and I, didn't have much guidance career-wise in my high school. And so I naturally went to those two options. And I was like, I think I'll go with accounting. And so that's kind of how I got into it. But everybody doesn't have that luxury of having parents who have those kind of careers and having that kind of exposure. And so felt like I kind of had to do my part to change that narrative and to change that dynamic. So that's kind of how it happened.
You got into it. So then what's your current role like? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yes. So when I was at the Center for Inequality, we worked a lot collaboratively with the AICPA Diversity and Inclusion team. So my predecessor, Kim Drungo, and I and her team, which is now my team, we all worked together, and we, they had the focus, they at that time, which is now had the focus on accounting, the accounting profession in general. They didn't focus on any one track like audit, tax, or anything. But the Center for Audit Quality, as you know, is focused on public company audit. And so because we were speaking to the same audiences, it just made sense to collaborate. So in all of that, I built this relationship with that team and that rapport. And so when Kim Drungo went on to her position, I always steal NABA's motto, and Walter knows this, the president and CEO, and he lets me do it. But it's the lifting as we climb. She lifted as she climbed. Yep, yeah. I love it. I use it everywhere. And so she took me along. She lifted and brought me there. And so now I took on that role, and it's been a godsend because I get to live out every day that piece of work that I was doing at the CAQ, and now I can do it every day through the AICPA. And so what we do there is we focus on 4 major groups: ethnic minorities, women, LGBTQ, and then one of our newer areas, not newer areas, but newer probably to come in my work, is more collaboration with the young CPAs. We had somebody in there in the association who focuses on young CPAs. And so the generational diversity and making sure that we are building up our young CPAs for longevity in the profession as well. And so that's kind of how we focus our work. We kind of, within those, we have different focus areas. Like for ethnic minorities, we focus on students, pipeline, and making sure that they're, enrolling in accounting, bringing the awareness around the accounting career. They're graduating, helping them through to graduation, getting their CPA. And then what I think is a major component of it is the transition from college to the profession. How do they navigate that? And how are we setting them up for success when they get in the firm and not just leaving once they get there? And so that's kind of the student work. Educators, making sure that they have what they need. And this is all serving ethnic minority institutions, right? And ethnic minority students. And so how do we prepare educators, especially with CPA Evolution coming along and the CPA exam changing? How do we fill any gaps that these minority serving institutions may have in that space, and making sure that they are prepared with technology, infrastructure, education, all that kind of stuff. Then we have a professionals arm, where we give professionals, education materials on D&I. We help with volunteer committees. We have a D&I conference that we do every year. And then we making sure that our conferences that serve our professionals are diverse so that they can see themselves there. They haven't necessarily been that way in the past. So how do we increase diversity there? We need diversity on the planning committee. They need to be on the stage. They need to be on the agenda, all that. And then where I spend most of my time is working with the firms. So helping firms incorporate D&I programs. And so a lot of firms come to me, okay, we know D&I is important. We've had it on our list. It's just kind of been fizzling on the pot and on the back burner, but now we need to focus on it. Where do we start and what do we do? And so I kind of walk them through some steps they can take, which includes like assessments, engagement surveys, coming up with a strategic plan, some kind of things like that to help them navigate how to get on the right track and start their D&I journey. And then we also, on that piece, we also have a piece focused on promotion and advancement, which kind of came, the forum. I think you attended our recent forum that was focusing on what do we need to do to fix this promotion and advancement challenge that we have in the profession. How can we make sure that we get more ethnic minorities in leadership roles? And what are the barriers that are in place that are making this, that are causing this challenge? And so that forum was a direct result of that, working with our affinity partners. Our affinity partners were telling us too, like, look, we need to do something about this. We need to tell people what's happening. We need to make a stance so that people can understand, at least give them some of the reasons so that they can work with. And that way we can, have some people take that and turn that into some successful tools to change things around in their workplace. And so that's kind of the piece that we work on as well too. So that's kind of the ethnic minorities, how we break up that work. And then like for women, LGBTQ and young members, it's, amplifying their voices, providing educational materials. How do you provide cultures of inclusion for those groups? And how different things and programs, making sure that they are, we're sharing with firms tools that they need to be more inclusive of those groups. And how do we work with the young people in those groups to make sure that they are coming up on the ranks? And so all those kind of things. And so that's kind of how we, at a high level, without going through my whole job description.
Right. No. So what you're telling me is that you don't just sit down and do interviews all day.
No. A lot of days though, I do.
I'm sure that's a fun part of the job.
Yes.
But that's good. That's good. Thanks for that rundown. And it's interesting because you touched on a lot of things that I've been learning through my journey of just learning more about diversity, equity, and inclusion in our profession and as a whole. I wasn't as aware of how diversity, equity, and inclusion is its own kind of sector, right? It's its own kind of profession outside of just the world of accounting. And when we're talking about increasing the number of ethnic populations or groups that are involved in our profession, it's really merging the two worlds together. It's identifying the challenges with the staying in the profession or the making the transition from schooling to the profession, or the challenge of passing the CPA exam or studying. And there's so many factors, like you said, that pipeline, right? I'm learning about the pipeline and what it takes, because it's not just a quick process. It's really a commitment. In some case, a good portion of your life is going to be dedicated to studying and becoming this, accounting professional. And you really have to commit if you really want to see it succeed. So you talked about a lot of things that I had on the agenda for today. So thanks for that.
Sorry.
No. I mean, good, because we're going to dive into some of that. And I know, we've been talking for so long, but we're going to dive in. So, a change is coming from what I can see. Okay. I'm seeing a lot more. I'm seeing a lot more discussion about African Americans being so low with the number of CPAs, Hispanic Americans, all the different ethnic groups having such a low representation in our profession and with CPAs. I'm going to throw some trend statistics at you, okay? Really quick.
I don't know. We'll see.
So I was reading the trends report from 2018. I don't think the 2019 one has come out yet.
2019 is the latest.
Is the latest?
2019, yep.
Well, I saw one online that was a 2019, but it was talking about 2018.
It's 2018 data, correct.
Okay, but that's the one I'm talking about. Okay. I was looking. I was trying to make sure I had the most recent one. Okay, really quick. So ethnic diversity within the profession has been increasing, but graduate rates have dipped some, is what this says. Yep. The last few years, there's been a decrease in overall CPA candidates and pass rates. And within the profession, our white counterparts are predominantly enrolling and graduating at higher rates. They're being hired into CPA firms at about an 85% rate, and these last two are the most important to me. The CPA firm enrollment, predominantly white, 80%, and partners within the firms, 90% of partners are predominantly white, right? So this is right.
Well,
so go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say that the 80%. I mean, it's still high. Right. Whatever it is, but I don't know that it's 80%, but so for hiring the non-whites, so I call them, because we look at ethnic minorities in totality, which is on that trends report, is called the non-white category. And so there is the, for enrolling, it's about 60-40, pretty much.
Okay.
For our history, it's been 60-40. And then for graduates, still kind of 60-40 too. It dips a little bit for graduates because, you know, people will enter and enroll in accounting and some fall off. And so graduates come down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then for hiring, it's crazy. It's 70-30. It's pretty much been consistently around 30% non-minorities, 70% whites. So that's saying either they're not going into the public accounting profession,
right,
or they're going somewhere. I don't know where they're going. Hopefully they're going into an organization that is at least in accounting, but they're not going into the public accounting profession for whatever reason. We don't know 100% what those reasons are.
right.
We hear feedback on reasons why, but we struggle to figure out what is the main reason,
Right.
but we hear various reasons. But then yes, of those 44% that enrolled, only 9% make it to partner.
Right.
Which is a huge gap.
Right.
A lot of them fall off because of the CPA exam.
Okay.
We know, but then still, why? First of all, the 44% needs to increase. That's one thing. But then why are we only getting 9% to partner? Like, that's the number that we know if we take that and just cut out the piece that's Black, that's where we need the work. Like that's what I keep telling people. It's hard to pinpoint one place where we need to work. We need to work on the whole spectrum.
Right.
It's like we need to work from high school all the way up to partner. We need to be doing work on that whole spectrum of things. And it's whether they're, we need to bring awareness on where to come into the pipeline, that they need to know about the career. And then we need to make it so that they can see themselves in the career when they get into the firm. Like, are there examples of them? Are they inclusive? Do they have a sense of psychological safety in that firm or organization, wherever they're going? And so that they can stay there and want to stay there. Sometimes they may not want to go through the work if they aren't going to see themselves there long term. So we have to figure out a way that we all can do our different pieces along the spectrum to help make all these changes.
Very good, very good. And I agree. I always kind of equate it to, I always ask myself, how do we make it more interesting or fun? I feel like there's a stereotype where people hear accounting and they're like the bean counter with the green hat, and you're just kind of like,
the younger generations don't know about that. It's the older generations who keep bringing that up. I'm like, let that die, okay? The younger people don't even know what that means. They're like, what's a green eye shade? They don't know what that is.
It's funny. I don't even, why did everybody, I don't even know why they wore that. I remember seeing it,
the pocket protector.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes they make us look pretty bad too. I watch shows sometimes and we'll have like the tie and then like the short sleeve shirt. It looks like such like,
not like, why are they so corny? That is just not reality. I don't know. Yeah.
And I think in reality, there's so many benefits, which is why I'm doing my part to try to bring more awareness to the profession too. So
it's funny that you say that, because I was just on a call and they were talking about how they were at a school trying to compete with STEM, and they had like robots and all this stuff, and they were like, how do we compete with that as a profession? And I was like, I think you have to, it gets back to my earlier point of how you can go anywhere with it. Like, I think you have to show it in the light as to where, and I have so many thoughts. I'm trying to get them all out at once, but I think, so the CAQ, I think, did Liz tell you about their Road Trip Nation documentary?
Yes.
They did? Okay. Yeah. So I think things like that to kind of show what the career is and what it does and what it really means. And I think when I was at the CAQ, even, we did a video where we took young professionals from the profession and had them record themselves with like their cell phones, just doing selfie videos, showing what they did in a week. Because again, to that misperception that they're sitting at a desk every day, and they're not. Like, auditors especially are all over the place. They're traveling, they're at different client sites. They could be, at Coca-Cola one day, they could be at an NFL, team the next day. There's all these things that they could be doing, but no one sees that side of it. So we had them recording themselves, showing them in their engagement team, sitting at their conference table with all of their staff. So, I think it's getting those images out and getting that people can see that side of it. And that's the fun side. Like, there's so many people that are still my friends that I met from my early KPMG days, from my engagements. And like we work together, we become a family, and we're working and we are doing, and we're, it's the people and the atmosphere, and you learn so much and you're doing something different every day.
Yeah.
Like that's the piece that's not out there. Like that's the piece and we need to show those images.
Yeah, that's for sure. And especially, like you said, in the profession of audit, because that's really where my whole career has been in audit. And I've experienced so much. I've traveled all over the country. I got to go to Spain, which is like the highlight so far in my career because it's a beautiful country, but it was, the profession that led me to these different places. And there's just a lot of perks, like you say, you get to see some of the biggest companies in the world, like when you're working, especially with some of the bigger firms, the inner workings of what they do. And there's a lot of perks that come from that sometimes.
For sure.
Sometimes you end up going to those NFL games and you get to catch a game, or you get
not to mention you're meeting with the CEO.
Because the CEO has to interact with auditors, you tend to get exposure. My first day, and I'm going to do a video on this, I haven't done it yet, but my first day ever working in the professional accounting with EY, I sat down in this it was a big conference room. It was a really nice conference room, right? I had no clue what I was going to be doing when I started my job. This is literally first day of my career. I spent the entire day talking to IT directors and basically chief technology officers of different hospitals all across Florida. And we were virtual, and it was just like we talked, we interviewed them about certain processes that they had, and the next one came and then another one started, right? Because we were doing an audit for these hospitals. And I just thought to myself, wow, this is so interesting how we're just talking to executives, like getting that direct communication with leadership of the company.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was very eye-opening for me, especially being my first day. Those are the type of things that I agree we should get more out there so that students are more interested in what we have to do, because they might have robots over there that are doing all this cool stuff, but you've got to figure out how to account for all that stuff to get it to actually assemble and for it to be profitable. And that's kind of the role that we fill.
And on the flip side too, there are people who want to do different things. Right. Some people want to just come to work and do the same thing and not travel, or they like the accounting, the bookkeeping of it, and that's great too. Right. But I just want the profession is more broad than what people think. People think it's only accounting clerks.
Right.
It's only people bookkeeping or only doing taxes, and it's not. You can do that if you want to.
Right.
But it's broader than that, and it's a lot of it can be more interactive too.
Yes, I agree. You are right. And some people desire to have that type of life because they can't travel. They have family.
Exactly. You can choose. That's the good benefit about it. You can choose what you want it to be.
Exactly. All right, very good. So then, with the AICPA is doing a lot. You have a lot of different initiatives going on to help bring more awareness and attract people to the profession and increase the diversity. How has the recent conditions with COVID had an impact on any of those things? Have you had to adjust the way that you're delivering these initiatives? Is it all mostly online?
Yeah, it's funny because I started in February, right? I think I told you that. But COVID came like 3 weeks later. So I don't even really know what this role was like before COVID. That's the only environment that I know. So I can't really speak to how it changed. But what I can say is the virtual environment has allowed me to reach probably more firms than I probably would have before. I think in the role previously, they were physically going to firms and meeting with people. And this now I meet with I can meet with 3 firms a day and from my laptop, and the other thing is I had this goal when I started. Okay, I'm going to meet with the top 100 firms. I'm going to call them all, make sure they have D&I. This is going to be one of my strategies for how I start reaching out. Well, I've had to make not one call. People have been calling me. Now, I know it's probably not the top 100 firms that have been calling me, but enough firms and state societies have been calling me that I'm sure I have reached probably over 100 firms, just in my discussions, my presentations and things like that. But there's this new interest. And I'm not going to say that D&I wasn't already an interest, because a lot of them already say that they had some stuff, but it's just not been very prominent. It's just kind of been fizzling, not really doing anything. Mm-hmm. But they have this new sense of urgency and priority, and they want to put it up on the radar and do more. And so because they already have that inkling inside, I'm not having to really sell anything. It's like, it's just me coming to them and saying, this is what you need to do.
Right.
And walking them through this list of things to do. And they want to learn and they want to soak it up. And I love it. And it's like, I can't tell anyone no, because I'm like, yes, they want to know more about D&I. So I'm like, I have to meet with all of them. And so it's a little bit exhausting. I'm not going to lie.
That's why I say you're probably the most one of those people in the profession right now. You know, you're kind of holding this role. So,
but it's like a good exhaustion. Like you feel good at the end of the day. Like, yes.
I mean, it's very good because, you know, I know I've heard you say in other interviews, but as we know, as Black people who work in the profession, a lot of times you're one of the only people in the room, right? One of the few Black or brown people in the room. So, you know, you always ask, you know, why is it that with all the opportunities and benefits that I know I'm receiving from being in the profession, why don't I see more of us kind of enrolling and being here? At the bigger firms, you'll see a lot more of us, right? But then when you kind of go down to smaller firms, you can really see that difference, at least in my experience. Mm-hmm. And I think now, even though I think a lot of it has spawned from situations, right, social unrest and that we've had in our country that weren't necessarily good things, we're trying to change the narrative. We're trying to change the focus at a broad level and really try to figure out how we make our world a little bit more inclusive, for one. But then also I think the professionals in accounting are saying, wait a minute, hold up. We've kind of had this issue for a while now, and there's enough of us where we need to start doing something about it, right? Right. So you've got like the most recent organization that I've been that I'm privy to or know about is the National Society of Black Certified Public Accountants. I don't know, have you heard about them?
Yes, I have.
So we've gotten together, and now there's this society that's working to do things to bring more awareness about African Americans and Blacks that are CPAs. But there are also all these other affinity groups and organizations as well, right? And I think the forum you were referring to earlier was the Courageous Conversations Forum, right? Yes. And then you had all the leaders from NABA, Alpha, Ascend,
and NCPACA.
And NCPACA together, all talking. And I really enjoyed that discussion. I got so much from that discussion.
Oh, great. I'm glad.
I think that it's good that we're having those types of virtual forums because we can't necessarily do it in public right now, right? So for anybody who's watching, if you haven't, I'll try to put the link into the video, but definitely check it out. I know there's probably more to come, right? And then AICPA does a lot of different webinars too on LinkedIn, right?
Actually, not on LinkedIn. We have our own webinar platform that we use. And so, what'd you say?
It's promoted on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
I see it.
You saw my promotion.
Got it.
But yes, we have our most recent one was on microaggressions, and it was a 2-part series. Right. And so part 1 was in November, part 2 was in December. So the first one was about, you know, what is a microaggression? You can't start telling people how to respond to them without telling them what it is. I actually met with somebody who didn't even know what a microaggression was. And so it's like, how do you explain what it is first? And so we had someone explain what it is, how it shows up, where it stems from. You got to know the history too to understand where a microaggression comes from. Right. And then they gave real role play like examples to kind of show, you know, this is what it might look like. This is how you might, and then at the end you're like, shoot, I think I've done this before. Like everyone has done a microaggression before. And I think that's what you realize. Like, look, it's most of the times you don't realize that you're doing it. And I think most people sometimes have good intent with what they're saying, but they don't realize the effect that it has on the recipient. And so it's kind of having that empathy for others and learning how what you're saying comes across. And that's kind of what part 1 does. And the recording of that is on our website. But part 2 is once you hear it, now what? What do you do with it? How do you respond? How can you make sure that I like to say, check the person, but not disrespect, and move past and educate on what they did wrong so that you can go on and help them so that maybe it doesn't happen next time. And so you kind of how to turn that into a productive engagement and that kind of thing. And so
right. That's good. So I'll try to link those too. You know, I haven't had the opportunity to listen to them yet, but I have seen you promoting it, and I think it's an important topic. The most recent interview I did was with Miss Janine Brown. I don't know. Are you familiar with Janine?
I am.
And we got into a lot of those.
You're interviewing all my friends.
You know it. I took a list of Crystal's friends, everybody, and then I'm gonna circle around to her. But we had a good discussion about unconscious bias, what it means, how to create a culture of a culture within the workplace where people feel comfortable, where they feel like they can see that long-term vision and value for themselves, and what we need to do in order to help have more comfortable conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the different responsibilities and roles individually that we have to make that collective effort of improvement. So I haven't it's not been released as of the recording of this discussion, but it's coming out very, very soon. And we talked about a lot of those things. So I think that it's good that the AICPA is giving training, because not everybody understands, even me. Like I didn't a lot of these terms and things, I'm familiar with them because I've experienced them to some degree, but you know, you didn't know exactly what it was called or how
you didn't know it had a name for it.
It's all learning. And I think it's very good that, you know, we're all focusing on it more, because at the end of it all, although I know there's going to be a lot of work still to do, I think it's definitely going to create more of a better workplace and hopefully, you know, community and world for us to live in. So I wanted to ask you a question, okay? So just bear with me. Why did you make the CPA exam so hard?
Oh, I don't make the CPA exam.
It was a joke. I know.
I was like,
but you work at the CPA, AICPA now, so
you should have had me have that person on the call if you wanted to ask that question. I can't answer that.
I know, but you know, AICPA is the organization that issues the CPA exam, develops the CPA exam, and the
NABAs,
right, with NABAs. And one of the things that we have been talking about as far as why there's such a low number of ethnic groups that are becoming CPAs is because of challenges with the CPA exam and passing the exam. From your experience, is there any consideration of diversity and inclusion when developing the exam? And I know you got CPA Evolution coming along. Is there any kind of connection between what your role and what they're doing to create the exam for the future candidates?
The future version of the exam, yes. We are actually, I've actually been a part of a couple of focus groups. They have gotten together some HBCUs, professors, and walked them through what the future exam would look like. And actually that's kind of what led to our goal, our new focus area around educators and CPA evolution and helping fill that gap that I mentioned earlier. And it's because they gave us feedback like, whoa, this is a big change that you're making, and we don't necessarily have the resources or the education for what you're about to add to this exam. And so how are we going to teach this to our students? And so we're like, oh, that's a fair point. And so CPA Evolution, as a result, is coming up with this whole model curriculum for educators to use to implement into their classrooms for free, to help them understand what this is. And they're going to offer free trainings as well. We're still working on the logistics of that and how to figure all this out. And our team will be trying to help make sure that the HBC community or any minority and serving institution, I just say HBCU because I think that's probably the more predominant one. We're going to be figuring out how do we get them together and make sure they get these tools, and how do we help educate them, and so that they're not left behind in these changes. And we think that these changes will help expand CPAs. It will help broaden the diversity of our CPAs and their educational background, because it's changing to a different kind of model where there are still some core courses, but then those who have more expertise in technology and other topics like that, or who want to focus on business reporting or want to have a more data analytics side, now they can become a CPA, and now they
Right.
can use their expertise. And I know a lot of the students these days are going into technology. And so the one
Yeah,
and so
I'm
now,
technology based, so yeah.
yeah. And so I always tell students, they're like, if they're an accounting major, they're like, I want a minor in something. What should it be? I'm like, technology.
Yeah.
I always tell them, yeah, that's what you need. That's what you should do. And so, yeah, it's those that way. Now it broadens the base. And so those that hopefully will help increase diversity. And I know we're also doing a lot of programs. How can we help help students along with the CPA exam? So I know in this year we started a new CPA exam scholarship that we were giving to students. I think it was $1,500 a student to help defray costs of the exam as well as the exam fees. I know we gave scholarships to NABA students to help with CPA exam prep courses. And so we're trying to figure out, we hear different reasons as to why students struggle with the exam. Some reasons, we don't know what the predominant reason is, but we hear different things from different students. And so we're just trying to figure out how we can help with those things. We don't want to touch the exam because we know they're smart. That's not the issue. They have the skill set. It's just how do we make it so they can just focus on the exam and have the time and the energy. And once they can, they're going to pass and they're going to be successful. And so it's trying to figure out to navigate that and help them through that.
So basically focusing on some of the barriers that might be impeding on their ability to even get to the exam and do their thing to pass.
Right. Like I always tell students, if you can, take it before you start working. Like, I know that is like, if there is anything that you can do, and I know some students can't because they have to work. And in a lot of cases, I know firms are starting to give people time off to study, and they're helping defray costs as well, and all trying to work in that space. But if you can do it before you have to start working, if it means moving back home with mom and dad for a little while, do it. Do it, so you can just focus on it and get it out of the way.
That is my story. That's my story. You know, I was told that in college, get it out of the way, focus on it and get it out of the way before you start working. I asked my sister if she would, this is my goal. And she said, you know, hey, you can come and live with me in Atlanta. And I studied for a year and I didn't do anything but study and pass.
That's awesome.
And I agree. It was the best thing. Although not everyone has the ability to do that. That's the hard part, right? Because
exactly.
Starting life, you have to think about, you know, how you're going to provide for yourself, or you know, some people have families. And
I was going to say they could be taking care of their family and they can't do that. And I think if a lot of the times they should talk to their employer, because a lot of the time, especially if it's in the accounting industry, they want you to be a CPA. Right. And so they will help you through that. They will help you on navigate that process, and they will, you know, give you maybe they'll put you on I know some, I'm not going to say any firms' names because I don't want any competition, but I know some firms are literally not putting their staff on jobs to give them a chance to focus on the exam when they first get there.
Wow.
I mean, that's the value in it, right? That's what they're showing, that the value they see in you, because they're going to give you that opportunity.
So then for anybody who is a new staff or a student, just understand that you should, coming from Crystal,
no, I was going to say, what are you about to say?
Talk to your employers, because there's a good chance.
Oh, yes, definitely. Talk to your employers.
A way for you to create a way for you to work, but also have a best opportunity to take the exam and pass.
Yep.
Because you've interacted with these employers is what I'm saying. I wouldn't put you on. I
was like, wait a minute.
No, but that makes sense. And I know that was the experience that I had when I was working with with the firms that I was working with too. They all really want CPAs, and they understand too the importance of having more diversity. So there's a good chance, like you're saying, that they'll create a way for you to successfully study and pass, because it helps the organization, and they also have an interest in helping your professional development. So I think that's great. Yeah. Okay, so we've been talking for some time, and I want to say thank you for participating and contributing. I think that our viewers are going to definitely get a lot from this discussion. I do, and I learn so much with talking to all of your friends, right? Good group.
Right.
So I guess one last thing to kind of wrap up the discussion. What would you say to students or young professionals who are just starting in their career and have to go through that pipeline to partnership or to a senior management level? Like, what is some advice that you could give them to kind of hang in there for the long haul?
Yeah, I think even when I was back in the firm, there's this, I don't know if it's this unsaid rule that you can't talk to anybody about things where you're struggling, right? Or there's like, if you feel like you're not you're in situations that don't necessarily work for you, you're not feeling your team, or you're just supposed to just struggle through it and it'll be okay and it'll work out for you. No, talk to somebody. I think it's very important to talk to somebody. Find a mentor in your organization who you can talk to. And a mentor, that person needs to be above you.
Okay.
Not one of your teammates, someone higher in the organization who can and if that mentor can be a sponsor, that's even the double whammy. But if just somebody who is higher in the organization who can help you navigate through that space. Oftentimes you can't do it alone. You need someone to talk to who can keep it real with you, who can tell you what's going on, who can help you navigate these spaces and say, oh, you can bounce things off of them to give you advice. I think that's the thing that I miss. Like, I was afraid to say, I'm not feeling this, or I don't feel like I'm getting as much exposure as I need on this. I was thinking I just kind of have to keep my head down, work hard, and hopefully it'll happen.
Right.
But that's not the case at all. You have to speak for yourself. You have to be your own advocate, and you have to go out there and find people who will help lift you as they climb. And so that is kind of the advice that I share with students. We kind of have our own role to play in our careers as well. We can't just expect somebody else to do it all. And
Very
so
true.
that's kind of that's the advice I would share.
Yeah, I think that's great advice because I guess when we talk about all the opportunity that there is in the profession and how we need to get more diversity in the profession, I don't want to underestimate or shorten what you would be going into. We do a lot of work. There is a lot of hard work that you have to do, right?
For sure.
You're working long nights sometimes. So there's that aspect.
Are real.
Yeah, very real. I've experienced
in any organization, not just public accounting. I still have busy seasons in my job now, and I'm in diversity. So,
and that's the thing. I mean, it's good to be busy. You don't want to get burnt out, though, right? But it's good to be busy because we all like to contribute to helping our organizations reach their goals and helping people, right? But you do, and I've experienced, you can get into those situations where you feel like you're struggling or you're challenging, or you might not know the most of what you're doing, and it's hard to speak up because you don't want to feel like you're behind, or that you're not as smart as everybody else. But it sounds like what you're saying is, based on the experience you've had, is that when you talk about it, it helps you to get through and overcome those situations, which can then help with the longer term of staying around or growing and developing in the career that you have. So I think that's great advice. And thank you for sharing. And thank you for participating. I think we'll call it a discussion with that one. I don't know if we can organize another one in the future, but definitely appreciate you coming today and sharing, Crystal. I thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here. This was fun.